went, but their Periscope post didn't go. Huh. What happened there, I wonder? Let me check Restream. Periscope is still there. Dashboard. Data, Periscope. Twitch is online. YouTube is online. Actually, Periscope is not online. Neither is Facebook.
Tom was calling tech support. Give him a second.
Hey, I'm recording now, so no more yelling. All right, bye.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Periscope or Facebook is streaming tonight.
Oh, but it looks like John is currently playing Rocket League. Would explain why he's so quiet.
Nope. Remote's down there.
Steam says you are.
Steam never lies.
That's because it's on another screen and it's always on. I don't have to turn it off anymore.
This week.
Okay.
All right, let's get that out. John sent out a tweet. I don't know if Periscope will just kick in eventually or what, but
I don't think we really have any listeners on Periscope. It's mostly a mobile platform.
Oh, is it? I thought a lot of people would pop in on Periscope because it pops up in your Twitter stream.
Yeah, we get quite a few comments coming. Like during the show, get comments from Periscope. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's right actually.
Aw, thanks.
All right. If you haven't already, start your local recording, please.
I forgot how to do that.
All right, and John, what do we do after the clap check?
Keep talking. Duh.
No. The opposite.
That's very wrong, John. Very wrong.
And no, don't do that. Go away. Go away. Yes, discard all those. We don't need those. All right, I am recording locally.
Okay. Clap. Check.
Did you start the other one already?
Zencaster, yes. Clap check. 3, 2, 1.
I wasn't really sure if you did or not. Come on, that was funny right there.
That was so unprofessional.
And you know that he does it because you can't say anything to him about it.
Can't fault him. He's got his plans well thought out. All right. Are you going to share OBS with us, or are you? Is there a reason?
Oh yeah.
I know you said there was things you want to talk about.
There you go. Ask me why it's not working.
It's frozen. Let me put that down there. Let me put that down there. All right. Any pre-game conversations, or are we going to jump into?
Go right into it.
Oh man, you are antsy.
He wants to be done.
He doesn't want to be done. He's got things he wants to talk about. So the longer we take, it just eats away at him. I can tell. All right. You're listening to episode 213 of PHP Ugly. I'm your host, Eric Van Johnson. And with me, Tom Rightup.
Hello. Why am I first?
And John Congdon.
We're doing last names this week? Hello, we don't want people knowing that.
I always do last names at the beginning, and we just do the first name at the end. Anyways, listen. Take a moment here.
So unprofessional.
If this is your first time joining us, thank you very much. If you're watching us live, welcome. You're more than welcome to participate on the live stream, which we record every week, Thursday, starting at 9 o'clock. You can talk to us through any of the chats of any of the platforms that we're streaming on. Twitch, YouTube, Periscope.
Not Periscope. Not this week.
Periscope tonight. No. If you're not joining us live, and if you're watching, or if you don't have any of that stuff, you're always welcome to join us on our Discord channel, discord.phpugly.com. We'll get you there. Feel free to pop in there. That Discord channel runs all week long, so a lot of people who listen and participate on the show are in there. You're always welcome to pop in there and say hello. If you listen to the podcast, welcome. This information is probably old by now, but thank you for listening, and think about joining the live stream sometimes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've been watching our little numbers creep up. It's fun to see. Look, my little thing.
Are we bumping up on that 100,000?
We're very close. We're at 170 now. 174. Look at that. 174.
Wow.
So it's just right around the corner.
You know why people aren't subscribing? This long preamble in the beginning.
And we forget to mention that you can subscribe.
No, more people have been subscribing since I've been doing this preamble, so that theory's busted. I plan on having a few dead people subscribe here soon. That's how apparently we can do things now in this country. So
don't even start. Oh my God.
What?
No.
Did you know that dead people legally can vote? Sorry, I didn't mean to go down that road, but yes.
I'm afraid to ask how.
If you cast your ballot and then you die, you were legally allowed. That vote still counts, even though you are currently dead.
Somebody just
friend of the show, Joe Ferguson.
Friend of the. Yeah, that's right. He hit that subscribe button. He's now subscriber 175. Boo boo boo. I don't know, man. We need sound effects. We need something. All right. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for hanging out with us. So yeah, join us in our Discord. Discord's always there. Okay.
And yes,
with all that out
the
of the way.
dead people can only vote depending on the state. Some states, if you die after you've cast your vote, they throw your vote out. Some states don't.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So if I had mailed my vote in Georgia and then died before the counting started, then my vote would have been thrown out.
Well, let's just try not dying. How about that be our goal for next week? We all just not die.
I'm on board.
I think it's achievable.
We'll
Set that bar
try.
low is what I do.
So I'm glad we've made it this far at least, because on Wednesday, Windows decided to update itself, and I woke up to a screen that said, "Please insert system disk."
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Don't do that when I'm taking a drink, please.
If you're not familiar with Windows, that's a bad thing.
Well, it's a bad thing because modern systems don't have a place to put a disk anymore.
I don't.
So
Like the last couple of computers I have didn't have disk drives.
I screwed around with my system for 30 minutes, just trying to get it to find something to boot off of, trying to figure out what was specifically wrong, which I knew it was the hard drive. And I eventually got the system to boot back up, no idea how. I basically made a bunch of changes and then undid them, and then the system booted up. So
now this is a real problem because this is your streaming
Yes.
machine, right? This is where we do the show up.
So this is my new hard drive, which on its own is still stunning to me, even though it shouldn't be. But it's credit card sized, a little bigger than a credit card, and it's half a terabyte, and it was $50, and it's 15 times faster than the hard drive I already had in the machine, which I assume it's the hard drive is going bad because it is about 10 years old.
Are they still spinning platters?
Those are spinning
in there,
platters. Yeah, I have spinning platters in this machine. So, I just I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we could all make it because I almost didn't.
Well, let's just it just has to keep it together for another hour, and we'll be good.
That's what I'm betting on. Is tomorrow I'm actually going to try and clone my Windows over to the new SSD and not do a fresh reinstall and see how that goes. But I am going to be backing up all of my OBS and other things that aren't cloud-based right now. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I've been antsy to try to stream from the Linux machine, but I haven't wanted to suggest it yet because I kind of enjoy not worrying about it. I like you doing it.
Yeah, and I enjoy doing it. There's no reason not to do it.
Yeah.
Besides having a backup in case you need to insert a system disk on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Exactly. How about you, John? How's the System 76 machine holding up for you with your hairy Mac swag on?
Mostly great. I've been able to find replacements for anything that I don't have Mac-wise. The one big one that I'm kind of missing is Audio Hijack, only for things like I'm not going to be able to play the Harry Mac MP3 because I don't have a way to get it into Skype right now that I know of anyway. Right. I haven't figured that out. So there's that. Skype is a pain in the butt because it does something weird with our audio devices. So it means getting on 15 minutes early and monkeying around with audio settings until things magically seem to work again. Yeah. But outside of that, I miss my SQL Ace MySQL tool, but I'm making do with Data Grip right now. You found, what is it, Beekeeper Studio? But it's so lacking in features. Like it has such potential, but it's behind the curve right now.
Yeah, and the tool I used on Mac, that Table Plus, does have a Linux version, but very much like Beekeeper, it's very limited compared to the Mac version and the Windows version. But I've been kind of bouncing between those. I spent a solid week last week on Data Grip, and I don't know, I just couldn't get a good feel for it. I was actually pretty stuck on that DB Beaver one, which was very similar to Data Grip, but both of them I don't know.
I'm making do with Data Grip. The one thing I really dislike about it in SQL Pro, which became SQL Ace on the Mac, when you open a new connection, you open it in a new window. Where in Data Grip, you have all the tabs, but all your connections could be intermixed. So you might be on production on one tab and on your local development on another one, and way too easy to make a mistake. So I'm finding myself...
You've got to really pay attention to what tab you're on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can color code, and it does color code along the bottom, I believe, but it's scary. I'm trying to keep my tabs closed. I'm trying to make sure I'm not all over the place like I used to be able to, because I just had separate windows and I kind of was able to see a lot easier.
Now, does Data Grip, I think I asked Thomas this, and Thomas, I think you said it did, but I couldn't figure out how. None of the tools I've found so far allows you to do the management piece where you can, because I'm pretty picky about having individual users per database that can only have certain permissions to that database. Right. And I haven't seen that on any of these tools since leaving the Mac. Like all of them, SQL Ace did it, Table Plus did it, all on the Mac version. But the Linux version does it?
Yeah,
you're gonna have to. You and I have to do a little pair programming and take a look at it, because I feel like I should be able to appreciate Data Grip more, but I just don't.
Yeah, I'm still finding my way around. I hate the fact that you can't filter down to your table name very easily. Yes, you can click in there and you can start typing, but you're jumping around. Where in all my other tools that I've used in the past, as soon as I started typing, it basically filtered my list. So I could type a piece of a table name and find all the tables that match that much easier than I can in DataGrip. And the fact that your tables and your views are separated in almost folder structure, that's weird.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. The reason I keep bouncing back to DB Beaver is I keep wanting to have this ethical thing of, okay, well, I'm just going to use open source. Like it has to be open source first, and then if I have a good argument to not use it, I will move to a commercial tool. And I understand I make a living doing this, and I'm fine spending the money. It's more of a exercise for me because I used to be like everything open source. Like I was really behind the open source message and why things were open source. And I kind of gotten away from that over the last few years. And I'm finding myself kind of wanting to go back down that road again, but I'm not quite there yet because I just like getting things done too much.
I still have my laptop here on the desk. It's been closed almost the entire time for the past week. I open it occasionally when I need to get something done that I am not quite sure of how I'm going to do it on the Linux machine. Big one is VPNing into different environments. I think I've got that all worked out, and I don't have to worry about that as much. The different database connections, just because I hadn't copied all the credentials over to DataGrip, I've got that 95% moved over now. So yeah, pretty soon it's going to be off my desk, except for opening it up just to make sure it's updated. So when I have to run out, I have everything I need.
Yeah, you actually inspired me. I had my Mac machine to my right here, and when you mentioned that you didn't even have yours open, I'm like, okay, yeah, if John can do it, I can do it. So I just put it away. All I had been running on it for weeks were just all my chat clients, my Discord, Telegram, things like that. But yeah, I just set it aside and got rid of it. So yeah, it's been going good. I like it. And they had a big Mac event this week, and I could care less. I didn't even watch it.
Are you
didn't
kidding
care
me?
about it. Didn't watch it. Didn't
oh
care.
my god!
Totally didn't care. Why? Did I miss something good? Do I want to buy something? What?
Yes, and
I just
no and yes.
MKBH.
You didn't miss anything good, but you're gonna want it so bad.
No, I don't think so.
The M1 chip?
Yeah.
Is that what
So
you're talking about?
Apple this week announced their M1 chip, which is their first custom silicon in ever, maybe, or maybe 20 years. And boy, it was a bunch of really good-looking engineers shoveling you horse shit and telling you it's French fries. It was an impressive show. Apple definitely has this virtual conference thing down. They've figured out how to make it look good, how to build sets for it, and how to make it not look like it's a replacement for in-person stuff, but like a giant advertisement. And they threw out a huge amount of numbers that were all relative to a completely undefined thing. So this new chip is 8 times faster than the top-selling laptop right now.
But they don't say.
Well, I don't know what that means.
I saw MKBHD's video, or take on it, and he showed a graph that they had, and there was like no real numbers to it. It was just like, hey, look at this line, and here's our line.
They had a line on a graph that didn't have a z or an x-axis. It was just a line. It was a line on a one-dimensional plane, It had no meaning whatsoever. It was bizarre.
Really?
Yeah, and then they talked about how they've got engineers at Apple.
There were accesses.
Yeah, they've got engineers at Apple who are already porting over to the ARM architecture. They didn't call it the ARM architecture. They called it their new architecture, but it's just ARM. And the memory is now on board the chip, the system memory.
Is that why all the systems come with such little, like, the memory? I don't think they had a 64.
No, you can't get a 64. The chip doesn't support it. You can't add memory after the fact. You get the memory and video card.
If your memory goes bad, you can't change it out because it's part of the chip.
What? So now Andy in chat says that the M1 doesn't work for Docker.
I'm gonna get there.
Okay, that's what I'm most, because I heard all this, like, oh yeah, it's all about virtualization. They're doing all this work for virtualization.
Yeah, but they're virtualizing the old Apple system. So they're virtualizing x86 through what they're calling Rosetta 2, which is, it's just a virtualization environment for running your old apps. And some of them even run well.
The old Rosetta. Yeah.
Some of them run well. That's good news. But Photoshop doesn't come out until mid next year. So if you're a photo designer, there's no reason you wouldn't get this thing. The drives start at 512 gigs and go up to 2 terabytes for $800. I mean, the prices on this thing are absolutely out of control. Just totally obnoxious. And there is no benchmark out there showing how it performs compared to anything, how well it actually runs. They're promising 20-hour battery life, though. But This is in the low-powered mode where 4 of your 8 CPU cores aren't running. And this is all on the new OS, which is, what, Sierra?
No, that's
what
old.
is the new one?
No, it's Big
Mount Rainier, Big Sur.
Big Sur, I think.
So that's where we get into the virtualization stuff. So virtualization for this kind of stuff has to be implemented at the CPU level. You have to have virtualization support so that the CPU knows that it can talk directly to a shared memory space. If you don't have that, virtualization is just emulation. It's not virtualization. The developer preview kits that came out did not have this feature in the hardware. All of the developer kits don't support virtualization. VMware Fusion has come out and said, we're working on it.
Ugh.
And Docker has come out and said, we found the address where virtualization is enabled on the core, so we know it's there, but we don't know what's wrong with it right now, and it could be quite some time before virtualization through Docker works.
This is so typical Apple. Like they just don't give a shit. It's like, yeah, we're going to change everything, and you guys are either going to adapt and catch up, or you're going to fall to the wayside and become irrelevant in our ecosystem.
But they've got so many other users now. They're not catering to developers. They're catering to the people that want, a 20-hour battery life, because everyone's traveling across the country right now or around the world and watching movies.
Well, they started
right.
their own silicon process a couple years ago. I don't think they had thought this thing was going to happen, but so the other notable stuff with this.
They're still optimizing for battery life, it seems like, more than anything.
But the other interesting and notable thing about this is that now all of the devices are the same. So you've got the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, and what's the other one, John?
The Mac Mini?
And the Mac Mini, right. And they are all essentially iPads of different variations. The MacBook Pro has active cooling and a bigger screen and the touchpad that everyone wants to pay the premium for. The MacBook Air is passively cooled, so it doesn't have any moving parts inside whatsoever. It has a slightly smaller battery, but it's the same thing. And then the Mac Mini is an iPad without a screen.
This is funny. This whole conversation started with an Apple event happened this week, and I could care less. Don't really want to talk about it. And the one guy who's been slamming Apple for the last 4 years goes on a rant for the last 15 minutes about every
it's a
detail.
very, very strange move for Mac, because they are locking everything down so tightly, hardware and software wise. This is another issue, is that the hardware is now digitally signing everything. So you're locked out of your own operating system. It's digitally signed by the hardware. And there's a lot of things you can't do because of that now. It's very possible you can't install third-party apps that aren't signed by Apple, which was a bit of a problem today because their their certificate authority went down.
I heard external GPUs aren't going to work
Nope,
anymore.
external GPUs will not work.
Hey, remember when I was talking about getting an iPhone because I was in the Apple ecosphere?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
It's like we picked the perfect time to veer away from that world, huh? Jeez, man.
Now, I like the MacBook Air because passive cooling, 18-hour battery life, that's pretty cool. But it's an iPad.
Like I said, man, my iPad, I feel like I can do a lot with the iPad. I'm happy with that. I still have the Mac laptop if I need it. When it dies, if I leave it at an airport or something, I don't know if I'm going to buy a Mac or not. I mean, had you asked me before I started using the System 76 machine, I would have said, yeah, I would always want like that level of support for a mobile device, because again, this is my business, not only my livelihood, but my business. And I want to make sure that it's always functional. But I don't know, man. I'm pretty happy with my little Linux setup right now. So
you'll go with the System 76 laptop, the next machine you buy.
Yeah, I feel like I could do it, man. I'm not even that concerned about it. It's not even like a big deal.
So,
but yeah, I got a question for you guys. I want to move on. I'm not talking about Macs anymore.
That's it. That's the M1 chip.
That was the whole thing I was going to do with my pitch. The whole reason I had us introduce ourselves before I did my pitch is I was going to let people know who we are, how John and I have a business, how we're all professional developers. We all code PHP every day. There was a whole spiel I had going, and you guys made me feel bad about it. Thomas, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How long have you been podcasting professionally?
Professionally? Never have. Never did.
Considering what we're doing is professional.
We'll call it almost 3 years, I think. 4 years?
4 years. Yes. Have you ever been on Voices of the Elephant? No, really. That's funny. John, you've been pretty well entrenched in the PHP community. You started user groups. You've been a conference speaker. You're a podcaster. Have you ever been on Voices of the Elephant?
I have not.
No, really? That's surprising.
Hey, Eric.
Neither have I.
Eric,
you've never done it?
I have not. You know who has been on there? Fucking Steve.
Oh, God.
Steve.
I'm not used to.
I don't like you guys.
I'm not used to his last name. I saw on the Trello board Steve McDougal, and I'm like, who's that? Then you said fucking Steve, and now I know who you're talking about.
Now you know what I'm talking about.
We love you, Steve. We do.
Yeah, Steve popped in. I'm listening to Voices of the Elephant. And he's like, this week I speak to Steve McDougal, and I'm like, hey, we have a Steve. I'm like listening to it. I'm like, that's weird. He says a lot of things our Steve says. I go back and look, and I'm like, it's our fucking Steve. They stole our Steve.
Steve, we made you famous, so you're on Voice of the Elephant now, right? It's all us. We're going to take credit.
Okay. To be clear here, Eric got his revenge. I'm not sure if you saw the latest edition of PHP Architect.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you want to check it out, it's free. phparch.com. The article I'm referencing here.
Right, and it will be in our show notes, which I've been told are complete crap. Whatever.
According to this article, we are the number 2 PHP podcast out there.
Wait. Who wrote the article?
It looks
some credible.
It looks Swedish. Erich Vangesson. Erich Vangesson. That's his Twitter handle is really similar to yours, Eric.
I'm not sure. See, he has a 0 where I have an O. I think that's a lowercase 0.
Oh yeah, it's tricky. It's a lowercase number. Those will get you every time.
Every time, man. I tell you. Yes, my community corner on PHP Architect got released as the free article of the month. And
he tried making it number 1, but the editor-in-chief said no.
We have a PHP Architect podcast. So he cleverly put Architect podcast as number 1, but put ours higher up in the margin than...
I don't do the layout, man. I don't do the layout.
So I can expect a flood of new listeners because of this shining recommendation.
There's pouring in here now. I can feel it. Any moment now. I missed a lot too. I can't believe I forgot to mention dev.to/podcast. So I created a whole honorable mentions page or section because there are people like Cal Evans who have.
We're on the main section and not in the honorable mentions.
Hey, I had to give Laravel their whole separate section just for Laravel podcast. Laravel has a lot of freaking podcasts, man. This isn't even all of them. I mean, they've got a lot of podcasts. I mean, they're all pretty good too, unfortunately. I'm kind of envious about that, but yeah, they got a lot of podcasts. I even looked for a good Symfony or WordPress podcast to throw in here, even though I don't listen to it. And nobody recommended one, and I couldn't find one, so didn't do it.
I started messing with Symfony this week. Decided to just completely halt and not do anything until PHP 8 comes out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah? So listen, PHP 8, man, we got a lot of feedback about our PHP 8 coverage, and I had even...
How wrong we were?
No. But I had popped into the PHP Architect Discord. So PHP Architect has a Discord. I can't exactly tell you how to get to it because I'm not sure if you need to be a member or if it's open to everybody one. I got in because I'm a contributor and they had let us in early. I think they let subscribers in now.
They didn't know who you were at first.
I'm not sure how you get into. Yeah. But anyways, I'd gone in there because a lot of the PHP Architect contributors hang out in there and a lot of people I respect. So I asked them about the not named variables, what were named arguments. I asked them about the named arguments one because it was bugging me like all week long. Like it can't be
that fragile.
What we thought it was. Like you changed, right? And they all pretty much agree. They're like, yeah, no, that's just how it is. Get used to it because it's the way it's going to be, and it's really not that big of a deal. Don't overthink it. I'm like,
I mean, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, except that the one example of using it on the internet at the time of our recording was broken because the syntax had changed. Like, there was only one real in-production use of that code, and it was broken because PHP 4, the Alpha 4 had come out and changed the name of a variable. That's
right. Array fill or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the options.
And within the PHP code base, it probably won't be a big deal. They're saying that it's part of the contract,
Right.
which is all fine. It's all fine and dandy. But library maintainers, I may refactor my code often enough and I'm just going to update the name of this variable because I'm used to, they're in order. People aren't doing named attributes or whatever.
Well, and you can tell them
named arguments.
Don't. You can tell them don't use named
that.
arguments for my library, but that doesn't mean they're going to or not. You have no way of stopping them.
No, that's going to be part. That's going to be part of a coding style. If your organization uses those, it's going to be across the board. It's not going to be here and there, and I'm not going to do it for this library. So it's concerning. You beyond the PHP code base or core functions.
Well, we
have to see it.
We also covered a couple things last week that I said I was going to look into. And I got some great information. I don't know if you guys want to go into that now.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it all week. Go ahead and share your browser, I guess. I think the viewers appreciate the shared browser. I discovered that...
Get the gun. You all right there? Something banged in Eric's house.
Yeah, hold on. I'll be right back.
I did not hear it. All of a sudden, he went quiet. I was like, ah.
It's just the dog playing around again, I'm sure. So let's start with the null safe operator.
Yes, the one where we kind of agreed that it was stupid.
Everything okay, Eric?
Oh, right.
So the null safe operator, what this does is it returns null when a method doesn't exist, or when a method or attribute is being called on a null object. And we had sort of come to the conclusion that this was stupid because you can use the null coalescing operator to achieve the same thing. And Andy, we will get to weak maps in a few minutes.
Thanks, Andy. Way to keep him honest. Yeah, we're gonna get there.
The issue here is that with the null coalescing operator, if you're making call A to call B to call C to call D, and B is null,
if you're chaining calls,
then A will get called to B, and B will return null. But the null coalescing operator will say, well, let's keep trying. And then it'll go to C. And it'll try to call...
Well, what are you going to keep...
Yeah,
you're going to keep trying on...
Yes.
Null? So it's got to do something other than null.
It's basically just suppressing the null warning. But it keeps executing the chain because it is an operator at the end of the execution path.
So if C has a value but B is null, it'll continue to return.
So it's a bad example, but it shows the underlining function of it is that null coalescing operator will execute the whole thing and then return null, which isn't that big of a deal until you have method bar in your argument to a null method. So on my screen here, you can see null ? Points to foo as a method, and the function call bar is inside of the foo method. With null coalescing, bar will get called. Even if A is null, when you try to call the method B, it will first fetch the arguments for method B and execute all the code that those arguments require, and then try to call method B on null. Whereas this null safe operator will say, hey, this method doesn't exist. Don't bother trying to establish the arguments for it.
Oh, okay. I'm getting it. So you're passing almost a closure or a method call as a parameter.
Right.
That's
So
still gonna
if
get called.
bar, all it did was say sleep 10 seconds, return true, then if you're calling it on null, it will sleep for 10 seconds and then return true to null. Whereas with the null safe operator, it won't call bar. It'll just say you're trying to call a method that doesn't exist and isn't going to exist, so don't bother with the arguments in it either.
Yeah. So it's a bad example in the fact that it's hard to conceptualize. But if you're talking about just a closure that executes.
So can you give me a rule of thumb? When would you use one over the other?
You would always use null safe instead of null coalescing.
Wait, other way around, right?
Null safe is a lower level operation, and it takes more effort to implement.
Oh, null safe will not execute the closure where the null coalescing will.
The null safe and null coalescing will produce the same results, but null safe will have a much lower overhead and actually short circuits the execution of the rest of the command. Whereas null coalescing says, do your thing, and when you get back to me, let me know what you got. And if you threw an exception, I'll throw null. So
gotcha.
It's
Okay.
So it's still an ugly syntax, but
yes.
It has a purpose.
Now, in practice, I'm going to use null coalescing because I'm not anticipating problems with polymorphic chaining on data, relationship models and all this stuff. I'm building to expect either I get something or I don't. In lower level design, and this is a theme that runs through all of the new stuff in PHP 8, in lower level programming, where performance is a major focus, where framework design is flexible but fast, that's what this stuff is for. And you're really going to see that when we get to weak maps.
All right,
But before weak maps,
been waiting for this one. You're teasing me. I don't appreciate it. Go ahead.
the match,
You love it.
I do.
the match expression, we covered it, but there was some confusion about its use versus switch. Yes.
On our show?
So match does support a default value, which we had trouble locating. It is a keyword. It is not it's just default and then the thing. One of the interesting things about match that we didn't cover is that match must match a condition. So if you have case 1, 2, and 3 handled in your match expression, and someone passes in 4, it will throw an unhandled match exception.
Unless you have a default setup. Gotcha.
So that's something that everyone should be aware of.
Unhandled match value.
Also interesting.
Is there a default?
Yeah, just default, just the word default unquoted. Unquoted.
Unquoted.
It's a keyword.
Just like in Switch.
Yes. Another thing is that match is strictly typed. You can match an object to an object or an array to an array. And it supports the ... syntax for making multiple matches on a single value. So there's lots of interesting cases. I recommend checking out php.watch. They have an article on the match expression, and it basically covers everything you would need to know about it, which you should want to know everything because you're going to see this in place of switch in a lot of places, and it'll be annoying if you don't know what the syntax means. I threw the wrong one in there. That's in the show notes. It's on the wrong page. Okay, weak maps. Are you ready?
Let's do it. You gonna pull up that playground
not yet.
again?
Because we're gonna start with weak references.
So this is all brand new to PHP 8.
Weak references were new to PHP 7. But
greater than 7.4. Right?
Yes, 7.4. Sorry.
That's what I'm here for. I can read the script.
So this gets a little insidey, but if I create a new object and assign it to variable A, then that object is created in memory and the variable gets a reference pointer to the object in memory. If I say B equals A, then the internal counter of how many references there are to that object goes up. If the internal counter, if I destroy B or unset it, or I change B to point to something else, that internal counter goes down. If I unset B and then unset A, the counter is at 0 and the garbage collection process destroys the object or flags the memory as abandoned.
Right. To be used.
So a weak reference is a way of referencing an existing object without incrementing that internal counter. So if I say A equals new standard class, and then I say B equals weak reference create A, then the counter on that standard class is still just 1. And if I delete the weak reference, the counter is still 1.
And do you know what the benefit of this is? Go ahead, explain it. Because I think Go has a similar principle with their references as well, and I don't remember why.
This would be if you're using something in a loop and you want to make sure that you're cleaning up the contents of your loop, that within your loop, your references to the object are not incrementing it, so that when your loop exits, you don't have trailing references to an object that's no longer being used. And on its own, it's not super helpful, but that's why we're starting with weak references instead of weak maps, because weak maps is where it gets helpful. So on a weak reference, if I delete the initial object A, B still exists, but because the counter is now 0, garbage collection will clean it up, and B will point to null.
At some point,
and it depends on your INI settings and stuff like that. But when garbage collection needs to run, it will run, and anything with 0 references will be cleaned up. So this can help in seeding databases and doing certain things. It's not the most handy thing in the world for day-to-day stuff, but I mean, weak maps aren't going to be a day-to-day thing for us either. So a weak map is the concept of carrying over that weak relationship to an entirely new object or reference. So if, in this case, in the case that's on screen here, I'm not sure if it's actually displaying very well.
You need to move it to your left a little if you can.
So in this reference here, we are getting a product and marking that as variable product, and then we're getting all the reviews for that product and marking that variable that contains all the reviews as just reviews. With a weak map, I can say the reviews, the contents of the reviews variable is bound to the existence of the weak object that I attach it to. So I've got product and I've got reviews. And in memory, product is 1K of data and reviews is megabytes of text. When I weak map reviews to product and delete product, reviews goes with it in garbage collection.
You're not sharing your browser on screen.
Oh, that's right, I'm not. There we go.
Yeah, no worries.
So traditionally, in this situation, I would have, if I was having a memory issue and I've determined this is where it was at, in order to get around it, I would have created a destruct method within my review list and then unset the
and hope that
I
they
needed.
weren't referenced elsewhere that was being used.
Somewhere
or not
else.
being used. If you
Right.
have dynamically named variables, or if you have deep reaches of your code, of your if loops that don't get called every time a product is pulled up, if you're handling reviews and then reviews goes down another tunnel and says reviews for your location, and then reviews that are positive, above 3 stars, and then further down, the chaining of all this stuff, you can develop these memory holes, these memory leaks in your system where
I've got tons of those all over the place.
And so the solution to this is in your for each loops where you're handling lots of data, make sure that you weak map to your object that you're looping over. That way, every time the loop finishes and starts over again, when that object that you're looping over gets deconstructed and then constructed into the next iterated item, the whole for loop gets collapsed, garbage collected, and started over. So I can see myself using this a lot in stuff that has out of memory usage or slows down as it continues executing or things like that.
I have this issue in a library that we are still using. Again, the library was written for PHP 4, so it's full of memory issues. And I'm constantly fighting, like needing to call free on it and then unset every piece of it when I'm trying to fight these memory issues. So this
is one where I absolutely see myself using it in the future. I don't know if this is really a good example that they show here because there's no obvious place where the leak would occur. But you can see that at least right here, when you unset product 1, then the weakly mapped contents of the reviews get dumped. They get sent to garbage collection. An interesting note in this article is the null coalescing assignment operator being used, which means that if the garbage collection has executed and this weakly mapped value is no longer referenced, you can say, get it again. So in this case, we say get reviews for the product, and then it stores it in an array, or it goes and executes the database call to get the reviews. So this is almost a caching method for objects within a single execution of a program.
Right. So the weak map itself is an array.
Yes.
It's being treated as an array. You are basically getting a pointer to a specific item in that array And then when you get rid of it, you're getting rid of it. Basically, you're getting rid of that element within that array, so it's not kept around for no reason.
And for what we do on the daily basis, this seems like, okay, well, there's caching. There's other caching that uses Redis and whatever. That caching does not account for the memory that's being in use by the PHP application that's running. That caching handles large blocks of data that need to be fetched frequently, but it doesn't handle objects being shuffled around and constantly used, and when they're not used anymore, flushing the memory out of PHP. And so
this is interesting to me, though, because to me the cache is there because you want a copy of it. So when you go to get product 1 again, you already have it. You don't need to grab it again.
Unless you've got a long-running process that is pruning itself, maintaining its own memory by checking the size of the array and cleaning out things that haven't been used recently, or you're running something like a web application that can search for 10 different users at once. And if 10 users are all looking at product 1, then you want to have those 10 instances pointing to the same one product. But as soon as no one's looking at product 1 anymore, you want it dumped. And this is a long-running process that's handling multiple users simultaneously. In PHP, we don't think about that. We think of one process per user. But when you start getting into...
Start and stop
but you start getting
quick.
into WebSockets, you couldn't write WebSockets in PHP because the memory, if you weren't masterful at handling it, would leak all over the place. So this is a way of writing long-running processes designed to handle multiple users simultaneously and spreading your garbage collection out to handle that specific use case.
Well, that's interesting because we did just talk to the creators of Swole last month, and that's exactly what they do. And that was actually one of the use cases they talked about, long running processes. But yeah, it's maybe they're just really good at what they do. I don't know.
Yeah, for my long running process right now, in each loop, I check how much memory have you used, and if you're over at some threshold, all right, exit, let supervisor D restart.
And the idea,
because there's no way to know where that memory is being used at. And
the idea that's very common in Node is having abstract factories that are weak mapped to result sets. And if the result set's being used by one thread, then it can be used by the other thread. If not, then you create it for this one thread, and that thread can be used by the other threads that need to use it. So this is something that has existed a long time in multi-threaded, long-running process-based languages, but we couldn't do it without the null coalescing and the weak references and a couple other technologies that just got added in 7.4 and 8. So now this is an actually viable thing for a PHP developer to do, create a long-running process that knows it's a long-running process and handles itself accordingly. And you don't have to deal with garbage collection. You just have to know that garbage collection exists and works. So yeah, that's why weak maps were so hard to understand on the first reading.
Well, that's interesting. Garbage collection on a long-running process, I thought about it, but it has to be a manual thing because it is currently... It is a probability-based thing per run, isn't it?
It used to be, but it's not anymore. Part of the performance increases in 7 and 8 are changing the way garbage collection works and having it run on a timed interval or a CPU cycle interval.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm going to have to look it up and tell you next week.
Because I remember messing with that
I said that as convincingly as I could.
It used to be, yes.
It was it was a whole probability. So there was a percentage chance that your garbage would be cleaned up or not.
Yeah. It no longer is.
All right. I'll take your word on it because I'm not taking the time to look
I
it up.
believe it runs. It runs with every application execution. It's always running in the background.
I'll take your word for it because I obviously stop listening.
We'll get into it next week. I've got the page right here, and it's too long to read right now. So that's my promised update on the PHP 8 stuff.
Cool.
Except I kind of got into attributes today, and that's one of the reasons why I decided I wasn't going to keep going with Symfony. Is that Symfony says, hey, here's how you do attributes in doc blocks. And I just know that that's going to be done for in December. That attributes...
You don't know that.
Oh, it's so nice. It's so much faster. It's so nice. It's so pretty. You can set rules to your attributes. So you can have a framework that says, hey, here's your attribute rules. The newest version of PHP Storm, I think came out last week, supports attribute type hinting and all that stuff that you would need for an IDE. So it's fancy. And I've already started thinking about trying to port Laravel routes over to attribute driven. Because it's definitely a doable thing.
Isn't that how Symfony does it? Isn't Symfony routes attributes?
In Symfony, it's an additional, it's an add-on. You can either use a built-in routing class and write them out, or you can use the attributes, the Symfony attributes plugin, which inspects doc blocks to find your routes. I'm reading a lot about Symfony right now, and it's just no one's going to want to stick with the doc block based attribute stuff when this comes out. No one.
No, of course not. Once it's part of the actual language, it's going to be moved.
Yeah, and I think it'll move quick.
Well, see, I don't, because then you're forcing everybody to move to PHP 8 quick.
No.
Right?
I think
backwards compatible, baby. Yes.
Because it's within a comment.
But
it will work, but I can stack it on top of... I could...
Not really.
Well, no, I can stack it on top of Laravel's existing route system, call a new service provider that I wrote that says, hey, after you're done handling routes the old way, handle them the new way too.
But again, the new way won't work unless you're on PHP 8.
But if you're not on PHP 8 by the next 7 months...
But it doesn't matter anyway, because if you're not an 8, you're not going to be using the new way anyway. It's going to be a service provider that you would have to enable or say, I want to use a service provider. It won't
break anything by starting to use it as the end user. If I'm distributing libraries for Laravel that use the new attribute-based routing, then yeah, that'll break for people who are trying to run Laravel 8 on 7.4. But I can set the requirement for PHP 8 in my Composer JSON, and that solves itself. So, this is going to be a very swift transition. Everything is in place for it to happen very quickly.
And we want to keep pushing people to upgrade sooner than later anyway. Don't want to get into PHP 4 and 5.2 issues that we've had in the past.
Yeah, cool. Kind of along that same lines, I put it in the Trello board. We talked a while back about PHP the Right Way, that website, and how it's really not relevant anymore? Well, I had a Twitter kind of back and forth with somebody who, I called him out. He's another podcaster. He does Coder Radio. And he's one of these people who will slam PHP, and I gave him a little bit of a hard time about it in my article. But he was like, "Well, tell me what's new." Like he said, I haven't used PHP in probably the last. I think
jeez, where do I start?
I'm like, oh man, so much has changed. And I thought about PHP the right way. I'm like, that site's not really relevant anymore. But I went there and click on the link, man. I know it's been updated because it tells you at the very top it was updated in April. Yeah. Much nicer layout. I still feel confident recommending this site to people. If you're out there and you're curious, it's still a very relevant site, in my opinion. I think we were a little premature in our judgment before, but I do understand what you were saying. A lot of the concepts that were in the original website probably didn't apply as much anymore. But PHP the right way, they seem to be keeping this thing fairly current.
It's current, but it's referencing use the PDO extension to make queries, and it's current, but it's not necessarily relevant anymore because of how people are using Laravel, Symfony, Cake. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's still relevant talking about. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't really apply to like the frameworks, but the concepts. A lot of the concepts that have changed over the years, it's still pretty relevant.
Does it handle stuff? The Gang of 4 stuff or the Gang of 5?
I don't know. Do a quick search for Gang, I guess. See,
I'm not seeing anything about.
It does talk about solid. I did see solid in here.
That's the thing, is that patterns have become so fundamental to basic PHP development and
design patterns under coding practices.
Yeah.
Coding practices.
Auto loading only shows up twice in the entire thing.
Yeah.
The handling dependency injection's not there.
Yeah, it is. It's right in the top of the middle column. Dependency injection.
It's in the big bold letters. Maybe that's
I'm just going blind. My eyes I realized my eyes have been bad for a couple decades, and I just never knew it.
Yeah, mine have gotten so bad in the past. It seems like all of a sudden, like they're bad.
I read an article.
The moment I started wearing glasses, I went downhill. Like my eyes just gave up on trying. I put glasses on, and they could relax again.
I don't think it's glasses that did that, because mine. I haven't worn glasses, and man, it is horrible.
He's not talking about his eyeglasses. He's talking about his whiskey glass. Just as he goes through that whiskey glass, the vision just gets worse and worse.
This is really weird.
No,
I had to open a bottle.
I have I have agoraphobia. Which, if you want to look it up, it's not one definition. It's 10 different things. But I was reading an article by a ophthalmologist who said, "Hey, it turns out that people who get sudden tunnel vision that causes their heart to palpitate often have misaligned pupils and just never knew. So they're seeing literal tunnel vision, and their body is always compensating for that. So they get headaches and their neck hurts and they get anxiety attacks randomly." And I looked at my wife and realized that if I relaxed my eyes, if I didn't focus specifically at her and strain my eyes, I have normally very, very good vision. It's like 30/20. I can see very well, but I have to focus to do it. I have to pay attention to do it. And that's causing a bunch of medical issues that I just never acknowledge because I'm so used to it. So I'm going to an ophthalmologist and getting my eye alignment checked and possibly getting glasses to correct it. So yeah, that's medical concern of the week.
Yeah, like
I realize
said,
I can't see just 2 feet in front of me. It's like I'm constantly now starting to move things away from me to see better.
Once I started wearing glasses, it was all over. I couldn't read my watch anymore without my glasses on. I couldn't read my monitor anymore without my glasses on. I mean, it just once I put those glasses on,
Well,
I've been
my
wearing
wife
them.
was very upset this week because she had gotten an email from one of our kids' teachers, which A, was upsetting, but B, she had to hold the phone up to her eyes like this and then move it back and forth to get it into focus. And as she realized she was doing this, she just started going, God damn it, no, I can't be this old yet.
So you want to hear one of the most horrifying stories I have as a parent?
Oh, yes.
As a father. The school called us into when our children were really young. I mean, they might have even still been in kindergarten. It couldn't have been past first grade, but they were very young. School calls us in. They're like, yeah, we did an eye exam, and we're pretty sure you should take your daughter. I have twin daughters, and twins are actually notorious for bad eyesight because of the way they develop. But they were like, we think you should take your daughters in and have their eyes examined and find out if they need glasses because they showed signs of needing glasses. And I'm like, I don't know my kids. My kids read like crazy. I mean, from the moment they could open a book, they were reading and they were excelling in school. I'm like, my kids don't need glasses. You're crazy. So we take them in, and it's the classic stand here, read the chart, and they're like on the second line and they can't read the letter, and I'm like standing there. I'm like, come on, give it a
It's
try.
G.
You can read that. What are you talking about? It's like I was like, a donkey. There are no donkeys on there. What are you talking about? Read the letter. Man, I felt like the most neglectful parent in the entire world. But like you said, they were young. They were compensating. They didn't think it wasn't even an
Right.
issue for them. But boy, did they need glasses, man. And but yeah, you feel like an inch tall as a parent because you know that doctor's thinking, how could you not know this? Like, why did your school have to send them to the doctor? I felt so bad.
That just reminds me of the time my son laid down on the soccer field. You just sort of grab your hair and go, come on, dude. There's other parents here. What are you doing? Like, what inhaler? I don't know what you're talking about.
He's always that color. It's the purple.
It matches the uniform.
It's what he does. Oh man. Parenting is hard.
Got one more thing.
Somebody should write a book on it.
Update from Derek Rathens, the current person creating, handling xDebug, all that stuff. Just gives
current like he's not
well,
the original.
He started by saying how much work he got paid for versus how much work he did. So I'm saying current because he might just give up. He got funded for 45 hours of work from the community, and he did 75 hours of work in October. So really, like, give him a subscription. That guy needs some money for now. Maybe not in the future, because he started talking about xDebug Cloud, which he didn't give a lot of information and said that it's currently completely private. He will be opening up a private alpha, but xDebug being completely handled through the cloud, connecting to local PHP Storm integrations, doing all the work for you. He's also still working on PHP 8 functionality because that's a huge rewrite for him because of just-in-time compiler and a lot of other changes. But 3.0 is in beta now, so if you're on PHP 8, you can start banging around with the xDebug 3 beta. And it appears that there are some benchmarks that show that xDebug 3 performance is up quite a bit. So Derek has a Patreon, GitHub sponsor page, and he's currently only at 66% of his $1,000 monthly goal, which is not a lot.
We need to move. So DiegoDev sponsors them, which is the
Naturally.
company John and I. We should move our sponsorship over to GitHub so we can get our little logo on here, John.
Ooh.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. I don't know what you're talking about.
And my last thing, I'm gonna hand it all over to you. I wanted to end on an up note this week, a really big up note.
Big, lay it on me.
December 2nd, the McRib is back.
I have never had a McRib. It doesn't even interest me. Is that bad?
It doesn't interest me at all either. I wonder
shit's
why.
on my up note. Oh,
I just a McRib has never appealed to me on any level. McDonald's actually doesn't appeal to me.
it didn't appeal to me until I had the
Although, John,
teenagers, and then it's like all of a sudden I'm back there.
John, you'd be interested to know that I guess they're
Well,
coming
yes.
out with a plant-based burger.
McPlant. I'm sure it
McPlant,
won't be
yes.
vegan. It will be.
Why do you say
'Cause
that?
it's McDonald's. They would have called it McVegan if it weren't bound by egg or something. It's just
That's probably
it's gonna be lettuce that's chopped up and then reconstituted with an egg binder. It's gonna be 1,000 calories.
with bacon on top.
Yes.
Because you know it's McDonald's.
Bacon bits are vegan, actually.
Yeah.
So is my beer of the day.
That they are.
Bacon
bits are
bits.
not
I'm sorry.
vegan. What are you talking
Bacon
about?
Yeah,
bacon
they
bits
are.
are vegan.
Yeah.
Oh,
Most
Bacon.
bacon bits on bacon bits on the market are not.
Yeah, they're
bacon.
usually just compressed and flavored soy. All right, fine. That's my up note. I guess that doesn't count. What do you guys have?
Let's end on murder. Why not?
What is Breeze?
Murder, but that's a story.
We're talking about pork.
So,
it is murder.
It could have died of natural causes. It's McDonald's. Come on.
You're more at risk of murdering
Yeah.
yourself if you eat McDonald's. Okay, so with Laravel 8, the release of Laravel 8, there was a big hubbub about Jetstream, if you remember. That was the new auth system that he put in place, that Laravel put in place, Taylor put in place. And it was probably one of the topics that he got the most pushback on. And so he's now released Breeze, which is more of a lightweight auth system, more like the traditional auth UI package that you used to add to Laravel that just does some basic auth stuff. And I think it still uses
It
Tailwind.
does, yeah,
I
it does
forget
use
actually now that
Tailwind.
I'm saying it.
I guarantee you the name came first, that
Yeah.
he was sitting on the toilet trying to think of clever names. And he thought, Tailwind, auth, I'll call it Breeze. And that's when the idea happened.
I don't follow that
Breeze,
thinking, but I
wind.
don't doubt you. How's that? Oh, Jesus.
That's the
What's
name.
wrong with you? Tailwind, Breeze. Yeah. All right. Sure. I'll give that
Thank
one to you.
Thank you.
Give you something. I'm not putting the McDonald's article in show notes,
you don't
man.
have
Come
to.
on.
It's already been roundly
going
shot
to.
down. Mostly for murder. And my abject celebration of it. Now I don't want one.
I thought there was going to be more. I thought this was going to be like a Rick and Morty thing with the Mulan
No.
sauce that I did get. But yeah, I'm not a McRib guy. Never understood the appeal.
You know, of all the
Doesn't even
articles that are
look
left
good.
on here, John has the one that interests me the most.
Let's do it. Let's do one more, John. Which
Try
one?
Hack Me.
It was just an interesting article I came across, or a site I came across. If you're really interested in hacking and learning how to hack, mostly to help prevent things from happening within your system, it's a great little tutorial. It takes you down the road of pen testing. I had an absolute blast doing this at conferences where you can do capture the flag, where you get introduced to some of the concepts around how to hack a site, and then you are given a virtual machine that you can access, and then you figure out how to capture the flag or find whatever data is necessary to complete that challenge. So Try Hack Me is basically a learning platform to learn how to do these things, and there's a free version and a subscription version.
There have been a couple of these in the past that I've used, and this one definitely looks like it takes it up a notch. It
actually gives you a whole
they've got a Kali machine. If you're not familiar with hacking, Kali is the hacker framework Linux distribution. That's very cool. I like a lot of this.
And there's a lot of different concepts. So there's, your traditional web application, but there's also, it looks like network hacking, just different things to learn.
And this is something that I haven't spoken on in a long time, which is that I started out as a security expert in the roughest sense that I managed to get better grades than I should have in high school. But that foundation gives me a lot of insight when I'm developing as to what I need to do to secure our content from hackers. If you're developing and you don't know how to hack, then you're missing a very big portion of the knowledge that you need for designing a secure system.
Even just the minimal version
right.
of
Even if
hacking.
you're just handling cross-site XSS or understanding DDoSing.
Go more basic than that. It wasn't that long ago. I was able to buy a product on a competitor's website for free. So I would go to that website. I would say, I don't want to pay for this, and they would ship it to me. They found that. I took it a step further. Oh crap, they fixed that. Oh, but if I make the shipping negative amounts, I can still get it for free. So knowing those types of things, one, you can prevent it from happening to you. And not that you should exploit that, but I was young and dumb, and I took advantage of that.
Yeah, and
just admitted to a federal crime on.
It's not a crime. It's not a crime to modify values that are being sent to your system and sending them back. It's a crime to modify values on someone else's machine, but modifying values on your machine is protected. So they have to show criminal intent, and they have to show activity I don't know why I would know this stuff. That's ridiculous. I mean, God, who gets into law like that around hacking?
Yeah.
Also, oddly enough, the movie Hackers, still surprisingly accurate. Like, surprisingly. It's still fun to watch, and there's still a lot of real-world examples of how hacking works. Most specifically, dressing up in a uniform and entering a place you're not supposed to be. They do that a couple times in the movie, and it's 100% accurate. They steal.
That's like just last night I watched Johnny Mnemonic. That still
I did
up
not.
Pretty good.
I did not feel that way.
Oh, that's fun.
He had a terabyte of data in his brain, and it was causing it to melt.
I don't think it was a terabyte.
Classic hacking movies.
Johnny Mnemonic It was. I think that might have been the first like serious role I saw Keanu Reeves in. I'm like, hey, that's that guy from Bill
Was
and
that his?
Ted.
No, he did a drama before that where he was star-crossed lover in Time Long Forgotten.
Yeah, I don't know why I wouldn't have seen that movie, but this one, yeah, enigmatic.
Yeah,
It's the Matrix before
but
the Matrix.
It's got a lot of super no longer okay racial references, specifically to the Japanese.
They had transgender in there, which was like, absolutely crazy back then. It was actually, I don't know, man. It holds up pretty well now that I think about it. Like I said, I just watched it last night. As far as like the cyberpunk future, they pretty good.
This random babbling
there,
brought to you by our Patreons. Patrons from Patreon.
On Patreon.
I guess, are we Patreons because we're members of Patreon, and so they're patrons to our Patreon.
They're Patreons.
Thank you very much, you guys. It's awesome to have people supporting us like this and supporting the incredibly well developed visual effects we now have on the YouTube stream. One of these days I'll have an Elgato Stream Deck. It'll go even smoother. One of these days. I don't know when. Yeah. My birthday's coming up
now, but that's okay.
That's it for me. Like, it's another information packed episode. I feel like ever since we got called out by fucking Steve, our quality has gotten much better.
We realized people were listening.
Oh God,
and stepped
what have we been doing?
Bit. See? Now, how do you think Buttery Crumpets feels? He's been listening this whole time. He doesn't feel like, he's brought us quality. We don't feel like we need to step up for Buttery. No, but we need.
No, because Buttery signed up when we had episodes where one of us was too high to even speak. And he got into the Patreon game after that. He saw it happen and said, "I want to pay for this." Yeah,
I want a piece of this right there.
Several episodes where Eric and I were both hammered by the end of it.
Oh my gosh! Early on, the only way we could even start is if I had a pretty good buzz going. Oh, man.
I see nothing's changed.
Not really. No. All right. Well, I think that's it. Episode 213 is in the book. I'm Eric.
I'm Tom.
I'm John.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it
ugly. Yeah, play our song.
I don't know how to
play our song last week. I thought you
because I had it queued up when John was playing it through a shared video. Now I don't have it anymore.
No, I sent you.
You put it in the Dropbox
to play. Yeah.
All right, that'll.
So you just add. I think you just add it as an MP3, and I think that'll play. I don't know. Actually, now that I say that.
Let's take a look. Let's drop the shared video.
Let's do it. Let's do it live. I'm not even sure what it would be. What
a media
source.
Do.
Oh, yeah, that might actually do it.
I keep getting a notification that Skype is ready. Like, why do you keep telling me Skype is ready? Skype is stupid.
You can silence notifications from specific apps.
Yeah, but I want to know what it's telling me and why.
I say it's weird. Restream the whole time said we had no viewers, but I popped over to YouTube and we had like five people on YouTube alone.
If I'm gonna get a mouse, what mouse should I get?
This one.
The Logitech
the MX Master 3.
Master 2S. Oh, you got
That's
the
what I was
three?
looking at.
Yeah.
I don't know where the
I
song
like it.
is.
I think it's that PHP. Is that PHP outro? What's the date
I
on
can't,
it?
it's
Sort by
Dropbox.
date, man. You get a date on there?
Dropbox doesn't pass that in.
So?
Yeah, it
Yes,
does.
it does. Modify. There you go.
No, those are all
You're
old.
crazy.
Those are PHP ugly bumper. Oh, go up one. Those are old. I don't know where it's at then. I know I put it in Dropbox for you and said, "Hey, here it is," or maybe I sent it to you, and maybe I sent it to you actually. It might be in Slack. Now that I say it,
Oh.
yeah, I sent it to you in Slack.
Okay, next week. That Slack is a different machine.
All right, yeah.
Yeah,
I sent it
Spady
in
already
Slack, sorry.
made the Laravel route attributes package, by the way, because of course he did.
Of course he did. Where's that? Where's that at? I saw a
A
Spady pop
Hinkle
up somewhere.
in general on Discord.
In Discord. Andy.
Oh, Andy.
Guess what I did?
Way to go.
I had an idea for a SaaS,
What's that?
and I bought a domain for it, and I started working on it.
Cool.
phpservices.com.
Oh. Don't get weird.
Oh.
You're still streaming, man. Don't give this stuff away.
I'm sure it's already been done a million times.
What's PHP services?
It's just the domain I bought.
What is that? Oh. I've got domains I gotta find a use for. You know, I had I still have actually, and I still want to do something with it. Back in the day, I said I come from Linux to Mac, and I bought a Budget Mac, BUDGET-MAC, and my whole thing was going to be I was going to have all open source stuff on that ran on Mac, because to me that was like it was all new. You know, I didn't know what open source stuff ran on Mac compared to Linux. So as I found things, I was going to release them on the site. And I never did, but I'm like, that's too good of a domain to give up, man.
Not
I
anymore.
got something for it.
Mac people don't care about budget. They
That's
want to
true.
spend money.
Holy crap.
These M1 chips are going to be slower and more expensive. It's going to be a total nightmare, because I watched the video and I was a little bit hyped about it, but then I watched MKBHD, who's usually very upbeat, and he was just like, "This is garbage. This is all garbage." He no, he did.
He did not.
He like pulled up the charts and he's like,
Did he actually?
he doesn't have one yet, but he pulled up the charts and he was like, "This means nothing. None of this means anything. All of this is going to be slower."
Oh, okay.
And then he started bashing. Them
No.
for saying, "No, he did. He started bashing them for saying, yeah, by the way, if you're a content provider, you can't run the Adobe Suite until 2021 in its native language. Why would you ever buy this thing?" He said very upfront he wouldn't buy it until Gen 2, and that he saw no market for this thing among people who are actually content producers or workers in any way on their Macs.
We watched two different videos, because he was also he also went through and was like, admitted that he didn't have one, and all he could do is go based on the stats that were
Which was
provided
none.
on stage, and
They provided no information that we didn't get.
they provided battery life was supposed to be double. Like,
They didn't say
there
on
were
what
some
tasks.
specs that he said if it lives up to that. No, but in general, if their stats double.
No, but this they
it
doubled,
held
but
up,
he didn't.
then-
He said they don't know when it throttles. This is going into Linus Tech Tips. Linus Tech Tips did a thing and said, we don't know when the CPU throttles, we don't know how bad it throttles, and we don't know how hot the chassis gets because it's the only heat dissipating thing on the entire system. So since they're pricing up the Pro version and the only difference is a fan, we can assume that it throttles pretty bad, pretty fast. So that's, I mean, it's... Maybe I'm confusing MKBHD's breakdown and Linus Tech Tips breakdown, but both of them basically said this is a product looking for a customer. No one wants it yet. No one should want it yet. The thing I didn't get to say in the podcast is it runs iPad and it runs phone applications natively now. So, woo. They showed Among Us.
Is any of it? Do they have touchscreen yet, or is it just still that touchpad? Touch bar?
I think the Air might be touchscreen.
I think John was right when he said that they've abandoned developers. Like, I think they got this huge uptick of usage when they seemed like they were embracing developers and bringing the Unix tools to a platform that developers could get their head.
That's Microsoft's territory now.
But I think so. Yeah. It seems like the only people Apple's concerned about now are filmmakers. Like if you do videos.
Not even that. But I think it's just students. Because the Adobe Premiere stuff doesn't come out until next year. Like it's none of the. They said it's supposed to be easy to compile over to their dual mode packages that are x86 and ARM, but Apple's like, yeah, give us 6 months, or not Apple, Adobe.
Is this hardware that you can buy now?
I don't know. I don't know if it's pre-order or delayed shipping, but
yeah, it's right here. Available 11. I just clicked on it.
But they've changed the text on it too. When you go to buy the new models yesterday or the day before, it said using the M1 CPU, but now the models say, hey, choose between M1 or the Intel i5.
Oh, that's the one I clicked on, didn't. It's just M1. But my God, again, they're back to only 16 gigabytes of memory.
And you physically can't go more than that. There's no onboard memory expansion. And like I was throwing the prices around.
I
was throwing the prices around in the general chat in Slack. It's 1 terabyte hard drive for $400 additional.
They were always expensive on hard drives. They were always ridiculously. Hard drives memory.
Yeah, that's the thing. So the $200 for the additional 8 gigs of memory, which is triple the retail, but now you don't have a choice.
Yeah, but again, people in the Mac ecosystem, they're used to that. That's standard.
The real concern is the right to repair stuff, because they're lobbying real hard to fight right to repair, and they're locking the operating system down so tight to the hardware that if they decide they don't like you, they can just stop you. And their certificate server was down today. So people who were upgrading to Mount Leon or whatever, they were trying to install apps on their newly upgraded system, and it wouldn't allow them to because it couldn't contact the certificate authority.
Oh, really? I guess I need to crack open the laptop and do an update at some point.
Virtualization's broken. What is it? The VMware Fusion is not ready for ARM yet, so it just doesn't work. So like Vagrant and Valet and all that stuff doesn't work.
I have a Windows machine on VirtualBox, and one of the reasons I installed it, well, I had a license because we had a client that I needed a Windows client for, but that's beside the point. And PHP Architect, I think Joe Ferguson, has been writing these articles on the Windows subsystem for Linux. So I decided, I'm like, all right, that's it. I want to see this subsystem. I heard Windows got a new terminal, like some power terminal and all this other stuff. And it turns out you can't do Windows subsystem for Linux on VirtualBox.
No, it's just Ubuntu.
You can't.
Oh.
No.
Yeah.
You can't do. Yeah, because it can't enable the hypervisor or something because. Yeah, so I still don't know what the hell it is or what it does or what the benefits of it are.
It's basically Ubuntu, like running like it's a Docker image.
Well, they have that Kali Linux as well, the security one. They have a few versions of Linux you can run. John, how are you going to get me on Rocket League now, man? I thought I was going to get Rocket League on Steam, and I can't. What's up with that?
You should be able to.
You got to reach out to your contact. There's no way to buy it on Steam now. I found the page. Like, the page isn't even searchable. It tells you, it says, by vendors' request, this page has been removed from searches and stuff. But I found the page on Steam, but there's no way to purchase it or enable it.
Oh, so I was only able to because I previously purchased it?
You have to buy it through the Epic
That's what
Store
I'm thinking.
now. Well, you have to download it through the Epic Store. It's free.
But can I play it through Steam? I need Steam because I'm on Linux.
You might be able to add it as a shortcut in Steam and see if it launches.
John, you need to reach out to our buddy.
He's not gonna know. I talked to him today, and he was asking how I was playing, so he had no clue.
You'll try to log in tonight. You won't be playing, bastard. All right,
I'll look it up in ProtonDB and see if there's a way that you get the Epic version working through Proton.
Yeah, let me know. I'll be willing to. That was actually that and Batman were the only games I wanted to play on Steam, and Batman seems to crash my system, so kind of hoping to get something going. All right,
John. I'll see you there
take it easy.
In a little bit. I know I'm stopping it now.
Everybody,
Everybody, thank you for watching. Have a good night.